Yes, hello, Dr. Lonsrich again. Third lecture of 3 on nervous system. And this is going to be a short one again. I have only 2 things I want to talk about with you. 3 things, really. Generalized pathway, type of sensory receptors, and then I'm going to talk about hearing. So first we begin with sensory pathway. We've already seen this before. But we didn't. I don't think we talked about receptors, or maybe we did. Anyways, receptors are specialized types of cells that are associated with the sensory system, and they are they come in different kinds, right? There are some that are sensitive to touch, some that are sensitive to chemicals, some that are sensitive to heat, pressure changes, mechanical signals, sound, and they then will communicate with sensory neurons. And as you can imagine, the communication takes place at synapses, and the blue one here would be a postsynaptic cell with respect to the sensory cell, or the receptor cell, if you will. And then this goes to interneurons, so this would be a sensory neuron. And the interneuron and the sensory neuron communicate via synapse, and then we get an action potential that propagates to motor neurons, and motor neurons then are going to act on something like a muscle. So we'd call that an effector. So that's a good pathway to remember. There are various kinds of receptors, as I've mentioned. Here are some. There are others, but these are the major ones, and I think I'll just leave it at that. And now I'm going to talk about hearing. So I'll begin by saying that this system that I'm going to speak with you about is the system for mammals. There are 3 different regions of the hearing system that I want you to know. There is an external element, which is the ear canal, that communicates with the eardrum or the tympanic membrane. And then there's a middle ear, and that middle ear contains 3 ossified structures known as malleus, incus, and stapes. And these are going to be in contact with the membrane here, and also a membrane here, which is then going to be contacting the inner ear. And the membrane here is called the oval window. The oval window is in contact with the stapes on the middle ear side and with the cochlea on the inner ear side. So the cochlea is the auditory organ of the ear, and it will communicate with the auditory nerve that travels to the brain. Inside of the cochlea is a structure known as the organ of Corti or Corti, and that is where the sensory signal is transduced into a nervous system signal. So the sound waves that come through the ear are then going to be transduced into electrical signals inside the postsynaptic cell, or postsynaptic cells. Sensory neurons travel to the brain, then travel to motor neurons, which travel to effectors. I'm not interested in having you know all the details here. I am just interested in having you know that the organ of Corti, or Corti, is the structure where sound waves are transduced into electrical signals in the nervous system. This is a really nice video illustrating the kinds of effects that these signals can have. And so what you have here are the receptor cells, and then you have sensory neurons, and they are in 3 different states. They are not displaced or bending, and we have action potentials that are being created in the sensory neurons. They're always going to be neurotransmitters released even when the hair cells are not bent. Now, in one direction of bending, the signal in the sensory neuron can be increased. It can be excitatory, And that will cause an increased rate of action potential firing, or action potentials, I should say, and will then increase the stimulus in the sensory neuron. And the other direction, the hairs move the opposite direction, we will have the potential for inhibition, and that means that no neurotransmitters are released here, and consequently the action potential rate inside of the sensory neuron will be decreased, the rate of signals will be decreased, and so we have different types of signals that are a product of different directions that hair cells are deflected on sensory receptor cells. That's all. Thanks. This is an illustration, right? There are many different ways we could have taken this. I could have talked about the eye, for example. Mostly this is about illustrating how these systems are set up. The most important slide of this is this one. All right, thanks.